Hi, everybody, and welcome to the AI Risk Reward Podcast. We're here today with Vinay Chaudhri. Vinay is currently a principal at Knowledge Systems Research LLC. He supports a National Science Foundation initiative on integrating deep learning with knowledge graphs and human like reasoning. Welcome, Vinay.
Thanks, Alec. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to be on the show and come talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing some amazing stuff, but I want to go back in time a little bit first and just ask you, when did you get started with AI and what was it like then?
Yeah, so I got my PhD in 90s from University of Toronto, Canada, uh, with Professor John Milopoulos. And funnily enough, Professor Milopoulos and Professor Hinton, they were working in the same corridor. It's just that, you know, he followed a different tradition, which is based on explicitly representing the knowledge in a way that humans can directly understand it, and then being able to use reasoning on that knowledge to derive new conclusions. So that was back in 90s. That's when I got started.
Wow, pretty amazing. And what did you write your thesis on?
Yeah, so my thesis was on concurrency control for knowledge bases. So the basic idea was that if we are uh, adding knowledge to a shared knowledge base, we have to be able to control access in the same way we are controlling access to our databases when we perform transactions on databases. So that was the idea back then, that we want to create a huge knowledge base, but we want to control access to it as multiple people add knowledge to it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is AI goes way, way back, right? So back really to the 50s in terms of neural networks and obviously different phases of expert systems and machine learning. And now everybody just thinks AI is ChatGPT, but there's a lot of different kinds of AI out there.
Yeah, so
And
for a few years, I spent some time on Stanford campus, and Stanford has a department of classics, and I saw one lecture announcement from the Department of Classics on robots in the Greek times,
hmm,
and I just got very curious that what were they talking about back then. And it turns out that even thousands of years ago, people were talking about automatons, which would automate certain aspects of what human labor does. And in that lecture, they were talking about how they would control the flow of water to the fountains, and that was their idea of AI back then. But the basic spirit that we want to automate some aspects of human labor, whether it is physical labor or cognitive labor, it has been around for a very long time.
yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I've flown a plane with and without autopilot. Much prefer with autopilot, or you're sitting there flying the plane by hand for long periods of time. So, and you mentioned a book that had a big impact on you, Yoga Sutras. So, tell the audience about that and pitch them on the book.
Yeah. So Yoga Sutras, it's an ancient text. It's one of the six schools of Indian philosophy. Um, we know there are yoga studios all over the country, and most people go do some kind of yoga practice one way or the other. Uh, but that's just the physical aspect of yoga. There is also the philosophical aspect of yoga, and that's what's covered in this book. And it talks about not just your physical practice, it also talks about how you should structure your life and the basic values you should adopt in the life. It talks about meditation, it talks about benefits of meditation, different approaches to meditation, what kind of things you can experience during meditation, and the benefits that you would achieve on the way. So I found it very, very grounding and very, very mind opening um, book to read, and I constantly go back to it. I have paintings which illustrate parts of the book which are pasted in my living room. That's how much I love that book.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. And I know you had a lot of mentors during your career, but you also mentioned Melanie Mitchell. So tell us a little bit about Melanie.
Yeah, so Melanie Mitchell is a faculty member at Santa Fe Institute of Complexity. Um, I've never worked with her, so I mean, I couldn't quite say that she's has been my mentor, but I admire her work, and I'll explain to you why I admire her. You know very well that there is a lot of chatter and noise about AI. People on one side saying, "Oh, it's going to obliterate humans," and on the other hand, people saying that, "Oh, this is just overhyped and blown out of proportion." What I like about Melanie is that she is even-headed. I mean, she's not completely dismissing what AI can do, but at the same time, she is staying grounded in what a scientist should actually do. Um, Truly understand a particular phenomenon in nature. And it's clear that we are seeing some amazing capabilities in these new AI systems. So a true scientist would try to understand what's actually going on here, and how can we better characterize this? How can we better understand why we are observing this extraordinary behavior? And Melanie is approaching it from that scientist's point of view, and not taking any position on one side or the other, but just trying to dig deep into what we are seeing and trying to explain it. And she has a series of 6 podcasts which are on the Santa Fe Institute's website, in which she analyzes modern AI from a variety of perspectives, mainly inviting different scientists working from the point of view of psychology or neuroscience and computer science and linguistics, and she brings all these perspectives together and trying to shed light on modern AI, and that's what I really love about her.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
And look, before you um, took your current role at Knowledge Systems Research, you were had a pretty big job at JP Morgan, right? So it's really a two-part question. One is just to the extent you can, tell us a little bit about what you were doing there, and maybe JP Morgan's approach to AI, where Jamie Dimon is pretty famous for saying AI is a race you don't want to lose. So it appears, at least to outsiders, like JP Morgan is ahead of many of the other large financial institutions in AI. And also, how did you make the decision to go from obviously a pretty engaging, busy job at a large bank to somewhere where you're really exhibiting thought leadership, and how you made that decision?
yeah. So first of all, I should say that I have good memories of being at JP Morgan. And I enjoyed the experience there, and overall, the firm was good to me, the colleagues were good to me, and I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity in my career. Um, I also want to contrast it with previous position I held at SRI International. SRI International is formerly Stanford Research Institute. It's different from a company like JP Morgan in that SRI is totally funded by government grants. And it's like DoD grants or National Science Foundation grants. And um, it's a not for profit institute. And the even though the pays etc. are not bad, but they're not as flush with money as a commercially viable company would be. So the reason why I'm saying this is just to contrast between JP Morgan and SRI International in that in their approach to how they would look at a new technology. So, for example, when I was at SRI International, they would not even adopt a new version of Windows. Windows is a new technology. It's a technology that has been around for a long time, and there are constant releases. But every release has some issues. Maybe there are some security holes, and our sysadmin's attitude was that let's not adopt it right away. Let's wait a few years. And their main rationale was that let's let the market figure out the bugs. And once all the bugs are figured out and the release is stable, we'll go ahead and adopt it. Right. Now come back to JP Morgan, and Chat GPT hits the street, and their mindset was completely opposite. Their mindset was that, well, this is a new shiny technology. We have to be there, and we have to figure out how we can use it in our business, how we can make it part of what we are doing, and how it can improve the business. And I had interesting conversations on that with a lot of senior executives, because I was coming from this very conservative prior experience where a place like SRI, which would not adopt even a new version of Windows. And here, we are running a successful bank, and there are daily operations, and some new technology comes along and it's not even proven, and we are rushing to invest gazillions of dollars into it to make it part of our business. So that actually was quite mind opening for me. And I once I was sitting with one of the senior executives, and I asked them, why are you investing in this, and why do you think it is worth your investment to try this thing that is unproven? And the answer that they gave me was quite illuminating. And they said that, look, this technology is definitely going to have impact in the business. And even if we prototype some ideas and we never put it into production, we just even throw it away, we've still learned what it can and cannot do. And it puts us ahead of game in the business. And if it turns out that it can really help us, then we are already ahead of the game as compared to other people in business. And that, I thought, was very refreshing, that JP Morgan, being a very large bank, they could afford to make bets like that, in which the success was not guaranteed, but they could lead and they could be viewed as a visionary organization. So I hope that gives you some sense for how it
Yeah,
was.
amazing. And then how did you make the decision to go from working day to day at JP Morgan to transitioning to a research role supporting a National Science Foundation initiative
Yeah.
and
So
really
part of
thought
it,
leadership?
yeah. So part of it was personal, and uh, that was the time when I was going through a life change, and I decided to start a family as a single parent. And I was fortunate and blessed to have the support of tremendous, IVF industry and surrogacy uh, uh, industry in the US. And um, so and because I was going to be a single parent, I needed to take some time off. And and JP Morgan had a very generous parental leave policy. They gave me like 4 months paid vacation. And so I took that, but that also meant that I had to kind of disconnect myself from uh, my responsibilities there, so that the business keeps running while I'm not there. And and when I went back after 4 months, there was a role available for me, but uh, it just at that time it just didn't excite me. That role did not excite me as much. And some of my former colleagues at National Science Foundation, they reached out to me saying that they want to explore the possibility of starting a new AI institute, and would I be interested in potentially working on it? And that was a tough choice, in that I could have gone back to that comfortable situation, um, but on the other hand, there was a possibility to chart my own path. And then there was this possibility that if I took this NSF role, I could pretty much work from home, and I don't have to um, get up really early in the morning for meetings, or I don't have to do as much travel. And obviously, I mean, it was a financial penalty for me to work on this, um, but I think a combination of intellectual challenge and being able to um, attend to the family sort of nudged me in that direction. I said, okay, let me just take this and let's see what happens. And I think the other thing was that, I in my previous academic career, I had worked on a lot of projects which had not gotten much traction, and there was this sort of burning desire in me, or some dissatisfaction that, look, even if the project didn't have traction, but I need to get the word out there. I need to say this piece. And that was not really possible within the JP Morgan structure, right? Because if you're working for a corporate company, they have their agenda, they have a certain way they want to be projecting out in the world. And in that context, individual opinions of a staff member, they are not central, right? So from that point of view, being on my own and just being able to do some my writing and get my ideas out there, um, it felt compelling. Of course, along with the family goals that I had. And that's how it happened. It wasn't a very simple decision, and it did took leap of faith, and just seeing, hoping for the best that this would work out. And it hasn't quite fully worked out yet, but it's work in progress.
Yeah, well, you mentioned an article to me at the start. Truly intelligent AI could play by the rules, which is coming out in Scientific American. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and how it dovetails into your overall research.
Yeah, thanks for probing on that. And that article, it's an opinion slash analysis type article. It's not like, it's based on years of research, but it does dovetail very nicely with my research because, uh, as I mentioned earlier, I come from the tradition in AI in which people believe that we need to explicitly represent knowledge, and we need a way of applying that knowledge in a predictable and deterministic way. And one common way that shows up is that you have a set of rules, and then you apply the rules to come up with a conclusion. Uh, it turns out that there are certain situations in life where it's not very easy to come up with rules, or the rules are too varied and um, too unpredictable. And examples being recognizing images, right? So, how do you write rules for how to recognize cat? Right? It's much
Right.
easier to see lots and lots of examples of cat, and then let the system figure out what is the implicit pattern in the picture, right? But on the other hand, there are situations where the rules are there. And in this article, we start with the example of tic-tac-toe. It's a very simple game. Everybody has played it, and it's very easy to see that there is a set of rules you follow in playing the game. But the interesting thing is that it's very easy to change the rules. And like if you change the rules saying that the first one to get three in a row loses, we have no problem. We as humans, we understand what is meant, and we are able to follow that, right? And but that's also part of a human ability to understand games, imagine the rules of the game, adapt to those rules of the game. And that's the aspect of intelligence I worked on. I mean, and I as I conceded, it's not the complete intelligence, it's not the complete picture. But if you have a true intelligence, it could play by the rules, like the rules of the game. It doesn't have to, right? It could do things that are not driven by the rules, but while it is doing things like recognizing pictures of cat, it should also be able to play tic-tac-toe, and it should also play tic-tac-toe if we change the rules by which we are playing the tic-tac-toe. So
Yeah.
that's what this whole article is about. It's based on research that one of my colleagues at Stanford has done on general game playing. And the basic idea was that, look, you can code a program or AI to play one game or even two games, three games. Some of the modern reinforcement learning AI systems, they can play three games, for example. But you have to know the rules of the game ahead of time. Before the game begins, you have to tell the rules so that your learning program can learn to play the game through self-play. That's how most of the modern machine learning, reinforcement learning based systems work. But what if you didn't know the rules? Or what if you wanted to change the rules half of the way? Like, first half of the game, you'll play with some rules, but in the middle of it, you'll change the rules, right? And the architecture that the current modern reinforcement learning systems operate on just cannot handle that. It's it's not possible, because if you change the rules of the game, then you have to restart your learning process, right? And so that's what this article is about. That as we are thinking about AI and what really counts as AI and whether it is real intelligence or not, we should pay attention to the fact that one of the abilities of the AI is to be able to play by the rules, even when the rules are strange or even when you change the rules at the last minute.
Interesting. When do you think, how many years think it's going to take for us to get to human-like reasoning with AI?
Well, so I mean, so you use the word human-like reasoning, and one challenge is that human reasoning is flawed, and humans. I mean, there is plenty of literature on that, which shows that humans will prefer a conclusion which is psychologically plausible but mathematically wrong, and that's why it's not even clear if we should be aiming for machines to do human-like reasoning. It's probably not a good goal, but a, the goal that I think is a good goal is how can machines enhance human ability to reason? How can the machine point out to human what is a good way to reason or correct way to reason, right? And I mean, I think we are certainly able to do that in some domains, like math being one of them. Calculator, making calculations. It's a one form of reasoning, but uh, it clearly enhances humans' ability to calculate with numbers, and it certainly works correctly. If a human was correctly adding numbers, a calculator replicates that, right? And when numbers get too big, which are too hard for humans to do, you can use a calculator. It amplifies
Yeah.
our ability to add numbers or calculate with numbers. So I think that's the right model um, for us to aspire for.
Yeah. Fascinating. Now, switching to our advice section, any advice for other single parents about how AI can help you as a single parent?
Yeah, so it's interesting that there is an app which is focused on, I'm forgetting the exact name, Replica. That's the name of the app, Replica. And the idea behind that app was that if you are alone and you need somebody to talk to, here's an AI agent you could talk to. And I I tried that app for a week. I mean, I was like, okay, I'm parenting my child by myself, and could I talk to this app about my concerns about parenting? And I had really mixed emotions in using it. I used it for about a month, and for example, I was talking to it about childcare. I was talking to it about, my child is going to the playground and he wants other people's toys. He doesn't want his own toys. Things like very mundane things like that, which as a first time parent, I didn't know how to handle. And this program Replica was giving pretty decent answers, and it was keeping memory of my old conversations and all that. And but I don't know, after a month, I started to feel myself uncomfortable, and it felt a little creepy for it to kind of be proactive in making certain suggestions. Now I do the same thing using ChatGPT, and there, it is not making any suggestions. It's forgetting my old conversations. And I personally feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
again, you may
Yeah.
call, yeah,
That totally makes sense. Yeah. I mean, one of the interesting legal issues there is a court has mandated that ChatGPT keep all of the chats right now. Even if you try to delete it as a user, they're not going to delete it. They're going to hang on to it. This is part of the copyright lawsuits against OpenAI. So super interesting, and also just to note to self in terms of the lack of privacy on kind of public versions of the AI models.
right.
So shifting to another similar question, but not for single parents, but for banks. Since you worked at J.P. Morgan, let's think about maybe smaller banks, maybe 1,000 people. So not a massive bank. A lot of banks are trying to adopt AI right now, really for the first time. And the only thing they've done so far as part of their AI policy is block everything, block ChatGPT, right, and Perplexity. What would your advice be to banks as they get started using private AI, inside their firewall? What's some advice you would have for
Yeah.
that
So
bank CEO?
yeah. So one advice would be listen to Jamie Dimon. Right?
Yeah, right.
um,
He's a billionaire, so in general, like if you're a bank CEO and you want to make some money, you should probably listen to Jamie Dimon. That's a good point.
right. Yeah, but again, I think the reasoning behind that is that JP Morgan has the resources to invest and explore. Right? If they've figured out that something is working for them, they've probably done their research on
Hmm.
that. And if it works for them, it quite likely might work for a smaller bank too. And in fact, while I was there, we used to talk about um, this idea that if we develop some technology in house, maybe we can market it to smaller
Sure.
banks who don't have their own resources to do the research and develop something similar on their own. So I think following the leaders who have the resources and who are very thorough and very rigorous about their processes. I mean, that's a good thing. That's a good idea. Good thing to do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, we basically developed something similar on our own and showed it to JP Morgan a while ago and said, "Oh my God, you built what we built, but
Right.
we wish we could have go back in time a year and a half and buy it from you." Um, anyway, so we're gonna head into the last section of the show, which is a lightning round. So I'll mention an item, and you tell me if you think it's underrated or overrated, or maybe fairly rated, and maybe a sentence why. So we're gonna kick it off with Indian food, Indian restaurants in Silicon Valley, underrated or overrated?
Indian restaurants in Silicon Valley, in reference to USA, I think they are fairly rated. But Indian restaurants globally in the Bay Area, I would say they are overrated because the best Indian food is in India.
Of course.
Yeah. So I don't think any of the restaurants in the US can even come close to what we are able to find in India.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I haven't even been there. Composite AI, underrated or overrated?
What do you mean by composite AI?
So that's combining what people would call different categories of AI to create a new thing. So it might be combining expert systems with Gen AI or Gen AI with machine learning or whatever.
Yeah, so I think it's fairly rated. I think this is a worthwhile thing to investigate to find out how to leverage the strengths of multiple approaches. It's fairly rated. It's not very well understood. So we should invest effort in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. The Moscone Center in San Francisco, underrated or overrated?
I have no opinions on that.
Well, they certainly cleaned up the neighborhood since last year, apparently. So that's good. Uh, the future of AI in education, underrated or overrated?
I think it is fairly rated. I wouldn't say it is under or over. I believe that AI has a lot to offer to education, but as you know, education tends to be a very conservative field, and I think they should be conservative uh, in adopting new capabilities. But I do believe that AI has a lot to offer to education.
Yeah. All right. The importance of technical documentation software, underrated or overrated?
I would say it is underrated. I mean, I think documentation is necessary, and if and nobody wants to or likes to do documentation, and if tools can generate the documentation that can be reviewed by humans, I think that's pretty cool. I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
The necessity of fundamental AI research outside the big tech companies, underrated or overrated?
I think it's underrated. I think it is very necessary, and not enough is being done. Right, and that's why I picked on Melanie Mitchell earlier. She would be a great example of fundamental AI research who is not part of big tech, but she's doing good work.
Awesome. Visiting Napa Valley, underrated or overrated?
I would say underrated. I love that place. It's amazing.
Yes, especially if you like wine. It's amazing. The weather, the wine pretty good. Uh,
I don't even drink wine, but I still love
oh
it.
wow, that's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
I
It's very
still love it.
pretty, certainly. Uh, impact of AI on environmental sustainability, underrated or overrated?
I feel that it is overrated.
Yeah,
I think the I agree there is too much energy consumption, um, but what the heck, again, I think if you can really understand AI, and if you can make breakthroughs in AI, we'll figure out to solve the energy problem.
yeah,
And so I think we need to get this AI answer to this AI problem.
yeah,
Right?
exactly. And then finally, the movie The Sound of Music, underrated or overrated?
Underrated.
Amazing movie, of
Yeah,
course, set in a fabulous spot too.
that's
Yeah,
right.
awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Vinay. This has been awesome. Vinay Chaudhri, currently a principal at Knowledge Systems Research, LLC. He's supporting a National Science Foundation initiative there. Great to have you on the show, Vinay. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Alec. I'm really grateful. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for having me.